Yeah, guys. So in light of the whole BRICS movement and, South Africa now becoming a major part of BRICS and, having a strong foothold, of the Russian strategy, the Chinese strategy, but also with the US in terms of AGOA, although many argue that the left wing influence in South Africa seems to be much more now than the right wing coming from the US, although Donald Trump actually argues that if BRICS decides to de-dollarize its system, that he will increase the tariffs of product coming from South Africa through the AGOA operation to 100%. That will cause a lot of loss of jobs, for South Africa. But anyway, Rob Hersov actually argues that Putin actually is intensely weak, and that, China is actually the greatest threat to humanity. These are really tough statements. And, for the South African, it's really important because South Africa is at a very strategic position for both Russia, China, and the US. The Cape is actually what many have seen in history as a refueling station. And if any world system seeks to dominate the world, South Africa is a really important strategic location that must actually be controlled. And so there's a fight for control for South Africa now, both from the west and from the east. So let's quickly listen to how Rob Hersov breaks down this problem with his analysis of the fact that Putin is desperately weak and China is a really great threat to humanity, according to him, and how this whole arrangement impacts South Africa. And that's really important for you South Africans to understand. And share your thoughts.
Germany, at long last, after being a pathetic laggard, is going to elect a business-friendly government at last. The world is changing, and it's changing for the better. This is a great new era ahead of us. And in addition to that, if I can go straight into the world order, Russia is desperately weak. The fact that Ukraine could invade the Kursk region without any opposition means anyone can invade Russia. And if Russia gets into a fight with America, Russia will last 30 seconds. America will absolutely flatten them. America is by far the strongest superpower militarily, economically, and technologically. And this is the technology era now. America's going to win for the next 12 years. China is having a hangover. I think China militarily is still the greatest threat to humanity right now over the next 10 years, because as their economy starts to slow down, and it is slowing down, all their social ills, all their environmental ills, all the destruction they've created in society is going to manifest itself in a we need to get militarily more aggressive. They've been unable to expand land on their land mass. They've destroyed all their own natural resources, so they're short of natural resources. I think China's the main threat to humanity and peace, and Trump knows that. So he wants to solve Ukraine as quickly as possible. He wants to sort out the Middle East, and let me get to those two separately, if I may, and then focus on China, because that's where the threat's coming. But America is head and shoulders stronger than China and anyone else. This world is heading in the right direction. I'm pumped up. I'm so excited. America on the ascendancy, driven by technology and driven by, decision-making Republicans and a slightly more macho approach. Solve Ukraine. By the way, I'm pretty convinced that Trump and Biden had a meeting. And I must say, I give credit to Biden. He's doing the handover in the most honorable, respectful way. His legacy will be enhanced by this. He is creating a sensible handover with Trump, and Trump is behaving very respectfully and sensibly. And I am pretty sure Trump said to Biden, let the Ukrainians use the missiles to whack Russia. Let's get Russia right on the back foot. The wimpy French and the almost wimpy Brits will allow the Ukrainians to use their, I think it's Scarp and Storm Shadow missiles in Russia. And Russia's going to get whacked for the next 2 months before Trump gets in. And when Trump gets in, he's going to say to Putin, right, you brought in Koreans, you're heading everything to World War III. We will knock you senseless. And I'm not afraid to do it. You're going to back down, take Crimea, take a bit of Donbass, and get on with the rest of Ukraine. Ukraine, we're going to arm you to the hilt. You're never going to be threatened by Russia again. You can join the EU, then there'll be a period of time before you can join NATO. And Russia will have failed spectacularly. Finland, Sweden, and ultimately Ukraine will join NATO. The Western wall against Russia is secure. And Russia's Putin, I think, will fall apart. Putin will be gone in the next 5 years. China's having a hangover. They've got real problems, but militarily they're a threat, and Trump's right. And on the Middle East, Trump's just going to turn to Netanyahu and say, finish the job. Whack Iran as hard as you can, finish the job, because Russia's going to back off. That's part of the deal with Russia. They'll back off from Iran. And Iran is isolated. And a final thing about Trump. He should have been and should be given the Nobel Peace Prize for the Abraham Accords. In his first presidency, he got Jordan, Morocco, Sudan, UAE, I think it was one other, to sign the Abraham Accords. And Saudi was about to sign when the Democrats stole that election. And they did steal it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm pretty convinced now. But he's going to reignite the Abraham Accords. Saudi will sign, and he'll get other Islamic countries to sign, and Iran will be completely isolated. Iran is going down. We might see a free, democratic, capitalist Iran pre-1975 with the Ayatollahs gone. That's coming too.
Yeah, brilliant. So I don't really know how, Rob Hersov actually comes up with this data, but, they speak quite a lot of sense. And, one of the things that actually amuses me with the Russian influence in Africa is actually the, influence is actually, Russia is actually having now in West Africa. In West Africa now there's a regional split between ECOWAS and the AES Confederation, where Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have decided, that they do not want to be a part of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, but they want to form a new body, an AES Confederation, where citizens of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso would feel as one citizenry, so to speak. There'll be free trade among these nations and all that. I think some other members, at some point I heard either one of the North African countries are thinking to join the AES Confederation. They want to push and isolate ECOWAS because they think ECOWAS is an instrument of imperialism. And since we know that the Francophone countries in Africa are actually fighting against French neocolonialism, they think that ECOWAS is an instrument, especially coming with the fact that the Nigerian president was recently in the news. I think he was in the news really going agog that he's a CIA agent, so to speak. So this was something that was in the news anyway. It caused a lot of news in South Africa and also among Nigerians, you see. But anyway, Rob Hersov speaks about this whole impact of China and Russia and how it's going to affect South Africa as a whole. I think it's really important for South Africans to understand, Putin's role, Putin's attempt. If you listen to Prince Mashele's analysis, I'll be doing a set of videos on that. He speaks about how, Putin actually still wishes to capture the critical minerals, in South Africa, but also the West, the US also want to capture the critical minerals in South Africa. South Africa is a really strategic nation. He actually argues that South Africa has a lot of gold, but most of the gold that has actually been mined from South Africa is sitting in vaults in London, okay? While South Africans are actually just striving hard for the daily living and all that. And so there's a fight for the control of the soul of South Africa, for the resources, the critical minerals in South Africa. And, with the weakening of Russia, according to Rob Hersov here, with the war with Ukraine at the moment, he's actually speaking about how that could impact South Africa's relationship with the East. And, probably South Africa will see much more influence with China, but also with the rise of Donald Trump now at the moment, is actually going to be a really shaky position that would leave South Africa impacted. Where will South Africa be? Will South Africa be able to rise with a strong leader? He actually thinks that Ramaphosa is so weak. Ramaphosa is not able to be that leader that can actually help South Africa stand amidst this whole battle against it. So it's really funny that South Africa is a nation that is being, that, different countries are fighting to control, and it's just there watching. It's a really strange. So South Africa needs a kind of leader that can emerge and say, no, I want to take charge of my destiny. I want to take charge of my, resources and all that. But Rob Hersov doesn't seem to see that kind of leader in a Ramaphosa. And I really don't know if probably he sees that in a Gaten McKenzie, or what kind of leader could emerge to actually stamp their feet on the floor and say, yes, we in South Africa want to take our destiny in our own hands and start building for ourselves. And so that's where South Africa's leadership actually finds itself. It needs a visionary leader, like Prince Mashela usually argues. And I really don't know who that leader would be. But anyway, it would be really interesting to keep on watching and understanding. But anyway, what do you guys think about Rob Hersov's speech here in this video? Share your thoughts in the comments.